Hello, welcome or welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a podcast episode, finally. I am going to be tackling a maybe controversial topic today, so we will see how it goes, but I do not want to see anyone in the comments calling me selfish because I have turned off the AC for this recording so that your listening enjoyment will be increased. So, you're welcome. By the way, it is mid-June and like over 90 degrees right now. So yeah. Anyways, we might talk about multiple topics. We will see if I get too hot. It's so weird having you so far away from me. I'm not used to it because I haven't been doing as many podcasts with like the actual podcast-esque setup. Well, that's kind of cool that I can do like hand movements all over. But anyways, so yes, I'm trying to think about how to approach this topic, but basically, for whatever reason, when I tell people that I don't want to have kids, sometimes people get really combative, like they're trying to convince me to have kids, even though it doesn't really affect them because I don't think I would be having kids with them. I mean, I have had experiences where, you know, in the past, when I was on dating apps, I had it marked clearly on my profile, don't want kids, because that's like one of the kind of questionnaire things. And I still did have a couple of situations where, you know, mid first or second date, they'd be trying to convince me to have kids, and it's like, if you want to have kids, that's fine, but why did you waste our time thinking that you could convince me? And I don't know, I think that's something that really pisses me off, is when people think that because I'm a woman, because I'm young, according to some people, which is ironic because people will call you old or young depending on like what argument they're trying to make. But whenever I say I don't want kids, people will say like, or some people say, oh, you're so young, like when you're older you'll understand. But simultaneously they're telling other women like, you're running out of time, you have to have kids in your mid-20s, early 20s, and it's like, which one is it? You're pressuring women to have kids young, but then you're also telling them that you naturally want them when you're older. I don't know. It's weird. But I think maybe this sentiment is coming from a couple different places. But one of those places, I think, is stemming from this fear that if one woman says she doesn't want kids, that means something for what women on a broader scale want. And I'll tell you right now, that's not the case. There are still a lot of women that want kids. And now, because women have more freedom, they are free to make that choice. And so that's why we see the number of women who don't want to have kids increasing. And same thing for men. A lot of men don't want to have kids too, which is fine. So I figured we would talk about some of the reasons why I don't want to have kids, and maybe I'll throw in some like common reasons why people don't that don't apply to me. And then also, if the house hasn't heated up too much yet, we can talk about assumptions that people have about why people don't want to have kids. And so for me, the reason, like I would say the number one reason that I decided not to have kids is because I don't want to. Like, I don't have a desire to raise a child. And that's not to say I haven't had fleeting moments of baby fever where, you know, if I really like someone, I can kind of, you know, imagine like, oh, we'd have such a cute baby, or, you know, that idea can kind of pop in, but it's not a lasting, genuine desire, and it doesn't align with the day-to-day reality that I desire. And trust me, this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. It's not something that is just kind of like, you know, short-sighted or based on my present lifestyle. It's something that I think is very core to who I am. And yeah, I think that is enough. That is enough of a reason for anybody not to have a kid. Don't mind me doing hand movements from time to time. I wish it was socially acceptable to do this when you're talking to people, because it's low-key kind of relaxing. But yeah, so I personally don't have the vision or desire of having a child. My dog is in here, so if you hear any little noises, it's probably her. But yeah, that's enough of a reason. You don't need any deeper reason. I happen to have many reasons, but you know, it really is as simple as that. If you desire to raise a child, then that should tell you something. If you do not desire to raise a child, that should tell you something. Your desires can lead you. That doesn't mean you need to act on every desire, but it is important to pay attention to, especially the deeper, lasting desires that are always kind of lingering. So another reason that I don't want to have kids is because of the physical trauma that is required from the woman's side. I'm not going to go into detail about that because I have very intense feelings opposing just that experience, and like there is no part of me that wants that experience. We'll leave it at that, okay? And not to mention like the lasting effects on the body, and like postpartum depression, things like this. My dog is snoring really loud, so I apologize for that. But yeah, basically, to me personally, that's not something I want to experience, but much respect to people who, are willing to go through that because they want to, have a child and everything. Another reason is because, so I personally I'm trying to think of how to say this. I have a very limited amount of energy. I am neurodivergent, and it's hard for me to just do certain daily tasks for myself, like getting ready, cleaning, eating, doing anything. It takes a lot of my energy, to the point that I'm gonna expose myself here, but I usually just use like disposable silverware and plates and cups and things because to me it's so draining to have to do the dishes. And I'm not being lazy, okay? It's more than that. Like, daily tasks are draining to me, and they always have been. Like, when I was little, I used to, get my siblings to like turn the light on and off and like grab me things. And it's just, I'm more in my head, right? It's hard for me to do physical tasks. And when I imagine having a child and all of the tasks that come along with that you have to do, or else you're a bad person, to me that literally sounds like a nightmare. Like, I can't do it. And so, again, that's not to say that being a parent is a nightmare for everyone. It just means that it's not the right fit for me. Also because if I did have a kid, I would not be okay with being a neglectful parent. I would not be okay with not meeting their needs, obviously. And I would be so focused on them that there wouldn't be any energy left for me. And that makes me upset to imagine. That's not fair. That's not fair. And I never really had a time in my life until now where I felt like I was being cared for. And so I don't want to give up that experience and never get to have it. I think that this time in my life, like this time meaning my adulthood onward, is for me. And so in a way, I am a parent to myself and my inner child who needs that sort of nurturing that it did not receive. And I know for a lot of people, having a child can be healing because they can, give that child things that they never experienced. But for me, I mean, that, it's possible that it could have that effect. But the fact that it just makes me feel so angry or sad to imagine having to give up my nurturing for myself, my self-care for someone else again, because I've already been doing that my whole life. Just based on those feelings that it brings up for me, I know that it's not the path for my healing, at least right now, right? And I know some people would say, like, well, when you have a kid, you're not supposed to stop your own self-care. But again, for me, I have basically a pretty open life right now. I don't have a zillion responsibilities. I don't have a lot of people in my life. I don't have kids. I only have my one dog, and she's very well behaved and easy to care for. And already I find it hard to do self-care for myself and make myself feel nurtured and loved and all of these things. So I can't imagine taking on the responsibility of a whole other life and then still having my responsibility of caring for me. It's just not gonna work for me. And so, also another thing, I don't care about legacy. I don't care about, my last name or my ancestors' last names being carried on and having this lineage. And that's just not something that I resonate with. For me, I feel more kind of like an alien that was incarnated here for this brief moment. And this experience of my life is what I get. And I get to choose how to spend it. If I have kids or don't have kids, that doesn't affect my purpose or the meaning of this glimpse of humanity. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but basically, to me, having a kid is not important as far as like feeling like I am weaving my strand into the tapestry. I'm already part of the tapestry just by existing and being me. And even if I had a kid, I'm not going to live through them. Like, their experience would be separate from me. So it doesn't really, all that I'm doing is bringing more responsibility. And to me, because it's something I don't want, it feels like a burden. Again, I'm not saying that's how it feels to parents. I don't know how it feels to parents because I don't want kids. If I wanted kids, I bet having one would feel like a gift. But that's the cool thing about being a mature adult, is you can realize that everybody has their own desires, and what is one person's dream come true could be another person's nightmare. So, yeah. Let me think about if there's other reasons. Okay, I do have reasons that might seem like bad reasons to some people, but I'm still gonna be honest about it, right? So, these reasons are kind of like ones where if this is the only reason you don't want to have kids, maybe you can work on it and then someday you would want kids. But even said, like, any reason is enough reason, right? It's better to not have a kid and regret it than it is to have a kid and regret it. So yeah, one thing that really seems like an unhealed person's perspective, but I'm just being honest. For me, I hate the idea of being vulnerable in that way with a man, because, and to be clear, I mean like having a baby puts you into a vulnerable position because you're going through huge emotional swings, your body's changing, not always in ways that you prefer, and you are gonna have this kind of automatic loyalty and responsibility to the child and to the situation, and ideally your male partner would as well, but unfortunately I have witnessed a lot of cases where the woman is at her most vulnerable, and that's when the man betrays her. And for me, like, I cannot even imagine the pain that would come from that. And I don't think I have to explain it. I think you know what I mean. It's just, that's the worst possible thing that could ever happen. And, you know, I was betrayed in my past relationship. And so I think that makes the fear even more tangible for me, where it's not just this boogeyman that might happen in the worst case scenario. It's more of a real threat. And, I see it online a lot too, like people talking about, as soon as they were kind of in that vulnerable position, they were taken advantage of. And basically, for me, I don't ever want to feel trapped. I always want to feel like if something happened, I could be okay tomorrow. Well, I wouldn't be okay, but like, I would be able to heal emotionally and then move on in life and not be forever attached to my tormentor. And so, obviously, that reason is coming from a place of fear, but I think it's still a pretty valid reason. Okay? So yeah. And, another one that is coming from a place of fear too, is I can't imagine all of the things you have to worry about protecting your kid from. In a way, the world is a lot safer than it used to be in the past, but there are also a lot of new dangers that are evolving so quickly that parents might not always be able to identify in time. And then also there's the aspect of like, they're gonna live a life, they're gonna be the most precious little being that matters to you more than anything in the whole world is now out in this world where the messed up stuff that can happen, and you kind of have to let them live. Even if you're strict, even if you keep an eye on them, that might backfire. And I say that because I had strict parents, at least for a period of my life. And I kind of feel like being too strict definitely backfires because it creates this pressure that's building, and eventually something happens. Whereas if you allow your child to integrate with the world and you teach them along the way how to experience it, they are less likely to be doing sketchy stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could take that pressure of anxiety. I feel like I would be having panic attacks 24/7. And that just, for me, does not sound like a good time. You know what I mean? So, yeah. There are other reasons that I hear commonly cited, like financial reasons. A lot of people don't want to have kids because of the economy. For me, that's not something I would be worried about, because I am a firm believer in where there's a will, there's a way. Trust me, if you want to have kids or a kid, you can do it. You can make it work. I am not saying to have a kid, or God forbid, multiple kids when you're poor as fuck. I'm just saying that if that is your desire, then that can be motivation for you to build a business or get a better career or push yourself in some way. And that's what I'm saying, okay? But I understand why people might not want to do that, because it's like, it's not that easy, right? And if you don't have that strong desire, you might have a kind of like lukewarm desire, and that might not be enough to get you where you need to go. The other reason was, what was the other reason that people say a lot? Oh, one reason is some people hate kids, which for me, I cannot relate. I love kids. I have a lot of empathy for them, especially kids that are more like old souls, like I was. For me, being a kid really sucked, which might be why I don't want to have one, because I'm like, a part of me feels like making someone exist as a kid is a really mean thing to do. And I know that's gonna piss some people off, but that's just the wounded part of me speaking, okay? For me, being a kid was not enjoyable because I was an old soul and I just didn't connect with the other kids, and adults kind of treat you differently, obviously, as they should, because you're a kid, but it just feels like a time where you have no control, but you're fully conscious and aware and intelligent. At least I was. And so it's like you're a slave or a prisoner for, until you aren't. And I know if I had a kid, I would make sure that's not their experience, but still, that experience for me left a bad taste in my mouth. And so childhood for me was a burden, and so giving it to someone else doesn't sound nice. It sounds mean. But I know there's a lot of people that, had great childhoods, and for them it feels like a gift to give that to someone else. Or some people who had not the best, they might want to, give that experience that they wish they had to someone, which is all valid and fine. And I will say, for some people that hate kids, it might be just for sensory reasons, because some kids are really loud and they scream and make a lot of noise, and I could see that being really painful if you're sensitive. That would be painful for me. I don't know why, but whenever I imagine, if I did have a kid, I imagine them being like me. I never was loud like that, so I guess that's not something that really is a major concern, but I could see why that would bother someone, and it would definitely bother me. So like you need to have a lot of patience, but also you need to have a lot of sensory resilience. You know, you need to be able to hear loud noises for long amounts of time and not crash out. And so that's something. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Some assumptions that people have when they hear that I or other people don't want to have kids. Some assumptions are like, and men get this a lot, men that don't want kids, but also women, especially like me, I've gotten this before. Like, oh, you don't want to have kids, so you can live a debaucherous lifestyle and you just want to be like, I was gonna say something inappropriate, but you just want to be promiscuous, right? You want to be promiscuous and never settle down, and you want to be in the club, you know, every Friday, Saturday night for life. You just never want to grow up, and like you don't want to be responsible. But, and of course, there are people that are like that, but I would argue that those people are rare. And I would say that choosing not to have children consciously is not something that an irresponsible person does. Think about what irresponsible people do in regards to making love and having children. What do irresponsible people do? It's not consciously choose not to have children. It's irresponsible people usually are not consciously making a choice. They're just doing whatever, and whatever happens. And trust me, if they want to be in the club every Friday night, they will be, regardless of if they have kids or not. So, if somebody does want to live a debaucherous lifestyle, and they choose not to have kids because they don't want to neglect said kids, that's great. That's fantastic that they're making that responsible decision. That being said, I've found that the majority of people that don't want to have kids are actually kind of boring. Like, I'm not saying that as a mean thing. I just mean like peaceful, settled down, in a long-term committed relationship, monogamous. Maybe they have pets, maybe they don't. Maybe they travel and, you know, they look good. They have more time and energy to take care of their fitness and their health and their careers and their spirituality. And, you know, they might have more robust friendships or not. But either way, that's what I've seen, right? Online. And in real life too. Not to say that they can't have a debaucherous time now and then, but I wouldn't say that debauchery is the driving force. In fact, I have found that people that are very like debauchery focused, I feel like those people tend to have kids out of ego once they're getting to the end stages of their debauchery. Once like the fun starts running out, and this is just me imagining based on like what I've seen, like this is purely anecdotal, but I just feel like a lot of people that spend their 20s and 30s being debaucherous end up having a quick kid in their 40s to feel like they have something of substance. And again, I know I sound like a hater saying that, so don't take that personally if that's you and what you've done. Sometimes, that can come from a real place of wanting to develop and wanting something more, and that's fine. Whatever path you take, I think you always end up where you were meant to. And so yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to touch on, because it's getting really hot in here and I'm worried that the lawn guy is gonna start cutting grass soon. So let me think. Oh yeah. Rude comments. I've actually had quite a few rude comments in real life regarding my personal choices. And the worst two came from older males. So this one guy, this was like 2 years ago, maybe. He was like 42, which for me, I was 24 at the time, so considerably older than me. We started talking about kids, and I told him just kind of matter-of-factly, like, oh yeah, I don't want to have kids. And he acted shocked, and he was like, that is so selfish. And I was like, I mean, I'm supposed to live my life for me, right? Like, who else would I be living my life for? And it does concern me sometimes, because I feel like that's, I don't know, I don't want to get into like a whole thing about where this is stemming from, right? But I do think that some old people think that women are meant to have babies as like their highest purpose. And that's why they're shocked when a woman doesn't want to. Because it breaks their view of reality. Like, in their mind, if a woman doesn't have kids, it's because she hasn't found the right man. Which means that she's looking for a man, and she needs that in order for her to be happy. And this creates this kind of artificial supply and demand in their mind, where they are desired and they are needed. And again, I'm not trying to piss people off, but I'm just gonna say that that is not the reality for everybody. It might be the reality for some people, but I think in this day and age, relationships and connections are meant to be about mutual respect, mutual love and connection and just reciprocal. And so I think it's a little bit different than how it used to be. But I don't know, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is just to respect people's wishes and don't assume that you know what someone else desires more than they do just because you're old. Of course, it happens, some people think that they want one thing and then they change their mind later, and vice versa. Well, I guess that would be the same, but you know what I mean. You can think that you don't want something and then later you do. And that's fine, but you should assume that if somebody tells you something, that they're telling the truth and that's really what they want or don't want. It's like if somebody came over your house for dinner and you offered them some cake and they're like, oh no thanks, and then you're like, I'm gonna leave it right here because I know you want it later. If you did that to somebody, that's extremely rude. You're basically telling them that you know what they want more than they do. You're not respecting their wishes and you're trying to push past their boundary by enforcing your will, even though in your mind you think, oh no, like, this cake is really good and like I love this cake and I think that this person would be happy if they had it. It doesn't matter what you think. They don't want it, so respect their wish, But yeah, let me think if there's anything else. Oh yeah. People talk about like, oh, you're gonna regret it when you're old, or when you don't have anyone to take care of you. And, that has crossed my mind. But the thing is that a lot of people who are all alone and old and dying have kids. Just because you have kids doesn't mean that those kids are going to be your caretaker. And it doesn't mean that they're gonna like you. It doesn't mean that they're going to prioritize you. In fact, I would say that that's more rare than it is common. It does happen, of course, but for me, I don't think it's worth it to throw all of those other things I talked about out the window just for hopes that one day I could have a free caretaker that feels indebted to me because I did nice things for them throughout their life, so now they have to take care of me so I won't die alone. I think that that is a stretch and manipulative, and for me it's just, I'd rather take my chances. And also, I have my whole life to work on building up my finances, and so I hope that I will be wise in my investments and finances, and that I will be able to create some sort of care plan, as everyone should, regardless of whether you have kids or not. But yeah. I'm like so sweaty now. Well, not sweaty, but like glistening. I do feel worried that people are going to be mad at me because I kind of spoke candidly here, and I tried to be as thoughtful and diplomatic as possible, but there are certain things that are just inherently divisive, no matter how much you sugarcoat it. So yeah, obviously, if you have kids or if you want to have kids, then don't be mad at me, and it's nothing personal. And if you're a guy who wants to meet a girl who wants kids, don't worry, you probably will. Me saying that I don't want to have kids does not mean that your desire is suddenly being ripped away from you. Just because one person doesn't want kids doesn't mean that everybody doesn't. And yeah. Let me think if there's anything else. I'm just trying to make sure I get it all in this video. I mean, also another way that I kind of made the decision of whether or not I want to have kids is I imagined how I would feel if I knew I was going to have a kid versus how I would feel if I knew I would never have kids. And I kind of meditated on it and put myself in that feeling state for both, separately, obviously. And I realized that there was this huge relief that I felt when I tapped into that feeling of not having kids. I felt free, and I felt like I had escaped from some sort of weight, some sort of prison. And I was raised in a big family. I was the oldest daughter, and there were 6 kids. So in a way, I kind of already got that experience of caring for children and making food for them and watching them and everything. So I already know that experience, and I've already moved on from it, and I'm ready to experience different ways of being nurturing and creative. And also, I don't know, it's like this really powerful feeling of feeling like everything I do is nurturing for me. And I don't know, I've really craved that feeling my whole life. And I still crave it because sometimes I lose sight of it, and I'm just excited to see how that's going to evolve throughout my life. And oh yeah, another thing, people say that I've had people comment online that I don't want to have kids, me specifically, because it will interfere with my business. I mean, maybe that's true, but that's not like one of my reasons. That's not anywhere at the top of my list, because for me, I believe, like I said, where there's a will, there's a way. So I don't make decisions based off of what's good for my business. I mean, I do, obviously, but I don't make like deep, core level, like desire level decisions based off of just my business. My desires, my deep core level desires, are held in this special bubble, and they get honored regardless of my business. And my business is actually a manifestation of those desires, and so it's not, it's kind of like that's just a separate thing. Although I do feel like those desires are complementary of each other. Like my business and my desire not to have kids is convenient, but I'm not afraid of having inconvenient desires. And that just happens to be a convenient one. So, yeah. But I hope that this has been interesting for you. If you were ever curious about getting in the mind of someone who doesn't want kids, or if you don't want kids and maybe you relate, or maybe you have a completely different reason that I never thought of, I would be very curious to know, and I would be curious to know your reasons for wanting kids. You can try to convince me if you're one of those people. I think it's entertaining, to be honest, when people try to convince me, because I don't know, it's kind of like when people tell me about Jesus. It's like, trust me, I know. I was raised Christian. I know all of that you're telling me. So it doesn't like trigger me when people try to convince me to be religious or have kids or any sort of thing that I've already thought long and hard about and I know where I stand. It's more just amusing to see them kind of battle with this straw man or this illusion of malleability, and it makes me wonder, like, who are you really trying to convince? But anyways, thank you for watching. If you've watched to the end, again, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially your nuanced and polite and respectful thoughts. But I do expect some level of bullying and pushback from this video. So hopefully I will be mentally prepared for that by the time that I upload this in a couple days. So yeah, I love you so much, and your desires are valid and they matter. As long as they don't hurt anyone, including you, you are allowed to explore your desires. This is a safe place for you and for me. And it's not wrong to live your life in a way that feels good to you. And I hope you're doing that. And if you're not, I hope you get the courage to. I love you. And hopefully I'll see you soon.